Hey, everybody. Happy to be here with you to do these headlines. So check it out. Check it out. Okay. So on Politico, I want to go over what happened in Politico. Politico is reporting that the next mayor of New York City, former cop, I think head of cops in New York City, wants to save the city from the evils of olive oil. First of all, if you are going to get a headline in New York City, this is going to offend every Italian who lives in New York City, which is everyone who lives in New York City. I mean, if you kind of live there, you've sort of become a little bit Italian in that city. Check it out. And if you don't know why I'm talking about, look, who gets this reference? The Genco Olive Oil Company. That's the company of olive oil that Vito Corleone ran when he rose to power in the movie The Godfather. Olive oil is very important to New York City. All right, so that catchy headline goes on to have a catchy story that's kind of interesting. So let's go through it together. I think that'll be kind of fun today. All right, a few American politicians have embrace the role of public health ambassador as comfortably as Mike Bloomberg. Just want to add, he was a Republican when he first got into office as mayor. Then he became an independent while he was in office for God knows what reason. I'm not going to dig that up for you. Anyway, he banned smoking in bars and restaurants, outlawed trans fats, unsuccessfully pushed to restrict soda size. Remember, everyone thinks he is a Democrat now because he switched parties yet again, and he ran as a Democrat in our last presidential election. So, already right off the top paragraph of this, they are tying restrictions, rules, forcing you to do certain things for your health to the Democrats. I just thought I'd point that out. The former New York City mayor, they're talking, of course, about Bloomberg, was so content in that role, he performed in a charity show, Mary Poppins, to spoof his nanny personality. So he embraced what the Republicans called him, nanny state. Now, maybe he just didn't want to pay for some of the health conditions that are caused by some of the overuse of certain substances that are found in our food these days. Anyway, now New Yorkers have chosen another wellness zealot. That's what they're calling Eric Adams. Now, I'm not like pro Adams. Here he is. I'm not pro Adams. I'm not anti Adams. I'm just figuring out what the deal is with Adams. But I thought this gets interesting. So let's go in there. Following 8 years of a mayor who largely avoided the thorny intersection of health mandates and personal choice. Health mandates? Smoking outside is not necessarily a mandate. It makes a choice and it creates a boundary so that people who want to have clean lungs inside have the right to do that. Good Lord, health mandates. Anyway, thorny intersection of health mandates and personal choice until confronted with the COVID-19 pandemic. That is de Blasio. Mayor-elect Eric Adams, a former NYPD captain, traded jelly donuts for kale smoothies. Good Lord, did he say he used to eat jelly donuts? Or is that just like, is that a thing? Or cops are still eating jelly donuts? That's still like a meme. Anyway, he had been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes 5 years ago, and then he reversed his vision loss and nerve damage and shed 35 pounds and anointed himself a spokesperson for a plant-based lifestyle. Did he anoint himself a spokesperson for a plant-based lifestyle, or did he just tell you the good news about what happens when you change from the capitalist, the capitalist pushed food program that we have in the United States, capitalism pushed big agribusiness food system, to something that's maybe a little more in line with what your body would prefer. Just saying. As he prepares to take over City Hall, a job that comes with a national bully pulpit, he stands to turn passion into policy. And that's where this gets interesting. We can save more lives. This is a quote with plant-based diet. If people would only realize they are enslaved to fats, oil, sugar, and things that are killing their body. Enslaved is a very interesting word choice. Definitely addicted, because those foods are made to be addictive, and they are addictive. Sugar is an addictive substance. Sugar mixed with fat is an addictive substance. We're going to talk about that a little later in this segment. But Adam, he was in a short film, which you can go check out, produced by Forks Over Knives, which is the company that promotes a whole foods diet. Here he is. All right. In electing Adams, a fit 61-year-old who once boasted, quote, "I don't have a six-pack, I have a case," voters chose someone who used his public perch as Brooklyn borough president to proselytize a vegan diet. It's not a big surprise that he's still talking about being a vegan. We knew, and we voted for him, or at least some people voted for him. Anyway, he showed off his intricate smoothie recipe and office-based stepper for TV cameras. I don't understand. Is he being shamed here? It certainly seems like the tone is health shaming. I know there's a fat shaming thing, but there's also a health shaming thing. Oh, goodness gracious. Apparently, he spearheaded a plant-based diet program at a leading city hospital, authored a memoir called Healthy at Last, part cookbook intended to overhaul the diets of its readers. Even olive oil, which he dubbed liquid fat, didn't escape Adams' scorn. Now, this is where I have to disagree, okay, as an Italian American with, let's call it, olive oil affinity. Olive oil is good for you if you eat it raw. You can't deep fry stuff in it. It oxidizes, and that's a problem for your innards. Okay, I'm not going to get into it. You can Google it, but I disagree that it is literally liquid fat. Yes, that is true, but it's not. You need fat in your diet in order to have, a brain that works. So, and other parts too. So I disagree there, but yes, you're not supposed to fry it or heat it up over a certain temperature, because that does make it bad for you. Anyway, that is just like health science. I don't understand why the big upset with him about wanting to be healthy. Adams, a Democrat, brought his devotion to the mayoral campaign trail, vowing to fund doulas for pregnant women because the first classroom is in the mother's womb. That's a quote of his, meditating on stage before televised debates and sharing his election night victory stage with a doctor who specializes in past life regression and Reiki. All right, so they're painting him as like a crystal guy, just like they painted Marianne Williamson as the crystal lady. Everyone knows I'm a fan, and I've had her on the show several times. I just think that the way they are talking about that, okay, I love the idea, first of all, of funding doulas for pregnant women. I could have used a doula. It would have been wonderful to have one. If you're not familiar with what a doula does, it's basically someone who helps you through your birth, someone who knows what they're doing, someone who is not your partner or potentially husband who may just pass out or has literally no clue what you're going through, someone who's not your mom, someone who is a person who's been there before, perhaps themselves or with other mothers, and understand what you're going through and can actually advocate for you while you are, under contractions at the hospital. I think I've told this story before. I had to advocate for myself while I was in labor with my butt hanging out. It's like insane that I had to fight a healthcare system during. Whole nother story. I think I've told it in another show. You can check it out. Yeah, sharing his election night, by meditating before televised debates. Don't we want somebody who meditates, who's chill and coming from that middle ground? Someone who wants to support mothers? I mean, the past life regression thing, I'm not going to comment on, but I believe mentioning it is, a lot of people believe that a human being died and then rose from the dead. And, a lot of people believe a lot of stuff. They don't get made fun of like this. That's very interesting. Okay. I'm just talking about political. I don't necessarily support or not support Eric Adams. Anyway, much of the time, the incoming mayor, who is Black, which is weird because they put up pictures, you would think, okay, focuses on racial disparities in medicine. He likened soul food to what he called, quote, slave food on a recent podcast, and pledged to build clinics in low-income neighborhoods that lack access to top-tier hospitals. How interesting. Isn't that interesting. In New York City, the mayor has pledged to build clinics in low-income neighborhoods that lack access to top-tier hospitals. Now, why do some of these neighborhoods lack access to top-tier hospitals? Well, I'll give you one example. Back when Mayor Bloomberg was the mayor, he basically closed. That was the time during which he just allowed buildings that were hospitals like St. Vincent's to be closed, to be rezoned for high-end condos. That's what happened under Mike Bloomberg, the Republican slash independent candidate slash now Democrat slash opportunist rich guy. Who has done some decent things, but it doesn't cover up for the other stuff. Anyway, the district attorney at that time opened an investigation, given that there was ample evidence to suggest that the administrators of St. Vincent's Hospital, which had been open at the time for 161 years, had actually tanked and mismanaged the hospital so much that there was such debt, and the debt is what drove it out of business. And then, of course, that land, it was the beautiful old building was taken down, and that land was, they put up a big high-end condo where the AIDS epidemic, where people, the AIDS epidemic was like ground zero for the AIDS epidemic. I mean, would you want to live in a place where like people were treated so horrendously and unfairly? Anyway, the hospital itself did a good job, I believe, in that was the only place who was doing treatments, if I'm remembering correctly. Anyway, I just think that's fairly, that's a big deal to have him say something like that, because the real estate industry is an enormous industry. It's a very powerful lobby, very powerful group in New York City, possibly the most powerful one. So I just thought, it just kind of stuck in my mind that he wants to do that. He also said he wants public hospitals to double as hubs for social services. That's a great idea. He also promised to clean up city-funded food. Will he do it? That would be amazing. So no more processed school lunches, no more sugary drinks for public hospital patients or junk foods for detainees in city jails. He told Politico in an interview last year, "You should not be leaving jail unhealthy. You should not be in a homeless shelter where I am feeding you on a taxpayer dime and I'm feeding you food like chicken nuggets." Very, very interesting. I am like absolutely thrilled with this. I'm taking off this piece, putting on this piece. I'm moving ahead. All right. I got a little something to say here. So he's talking about school lunches at the lunches at the prisons, making them healthy. How very interesting is that? Does he realize that's very anti-corporate stance he is taking? I mean, people have been out there saying, doesn't he have better things to do with his time? Is he the food police or a food dictator or something? But I really like how he's going to put healthy food in public schools. I mean, Politico is not necessarily known for its pro-people, anti-corporate interest leanings. And they clearly did not highlight what I'm about to highlight, which is this is kind of anti-corporatist, what he's doing. In my opinion, what he's doing is a Democrat doing Democratic things like opening community healthcare centers. I don't care if he knows anything about healthy food or not. He can hire someone who knows what they're doing to plan those kids' menus. Because right now, the kids are getting served sugar and fat and more sugar and fat in public school. And then they act crazy and all wound up and totally nutters because they're all sugared up. And then they're punished for their behavior. And many times these days, kids who get punished from public school are sent to juvenile delinquency centers. And even the cops come to get them. They're not just sent to the principal's office like they were back in the day. And not only that, but kids form their eating tastes and habits very early. And of course, here we have it. McDonald's knows this. This image you can't see very well, but it says at the bottom, I wish we could scroll it up a little bit. I don't know if we can, Giancarlo. We're teaming up to save school lunch is what it says at the bottom here. Hold on. Maybe if I put it like that. There it is. We're teaming up to save school lunch. They want to team up to save, quote unquote, school lunch, because the earlier you get those kids addicted to your addictive product, that's your, those are your customers of the future. That's why they're teaming up to save school lunch. On the one hand, libertarians will bust my hump and say that it's wonderful that corporations are doing charitable work and they should do this and the government should stay out of it. But don't forget, the government is going to be paying for this anyway. It's basically a tax dollar money laundering scheme because the tax write-off McDonald's will get for this program. I'm sure Ronald McD is not doing it for love and for free, not over at corporate. They're not. They're doing it to addict their kids early. The ratio of sugar and fat they use to make their products is practically irresistible to your brain. More signals the brain, more, which fits in perfectly with capitalism that indoctrinates our whole society with the disease of more. And McDonald's, by the way, is one of the greatest contributors to the burning of the Amazon rainforest. In fact, investigations by the Business and Human Rights Resource Center reveal that McDonald's, Burger King, I don't know where we are with the images, Giancarlo. Do we have one? What's the next one? Yeah, there you go. McDonald's, Burger King, KFCs, and companies in the UK are supplied with meat from illegal deforestation areas in the Amazon rainforest, not just the legal ones. The Amazon fires that are being set there, close to 2.5 million hectares of land, which is an area larger than Wales, was burned in the Brazilian Amazon in August. Not over the last 10 years, not over the last 5 years, in 1 month. And according to data published by the same study group, the Brazilian agency responsible for monitoring forests from space, was able to see just exactly the enormous amount of devastation there. Fires were deliberately started by farmers and land grabbers. And of course, this is being encouraged by fascist President Bolsonaro and his calls to open the Amazon to agriculture. Brazil's natural ecosystems are basically being decimated to produce beef and another crop called soya. And McDonald's and KFC and Burger King are sourcing vast amounts of these goods. Both Burger King and McDonald's buy Brazilian beef. All three companies serve chicken fed on a diet of soya, also grown on rainforest land. Now, I've been studying, look how beautiful it is. I've been studying beef being raised on the rainforest for, I don't know, the last couple decades. And I think it's 3 years. One piece of land can that was formerly rainforest land can support 3 years of cows, and that's it until it's totally exhausted because there's not a lot of soil in the rainforest. Fascinating. So it's all a big nothing for your burger. Anyway, every person on Earth depends on the Amazon to regulate our climate. If you didn't know, the Amazon forest sucks carbon from the air, stores it in billions of trees, produces what's called a flying river of water vapor that impacts weather in other countries and other continents. So this is a global issue. It brings rain to otherwise dry regions of South America. It's home to hundreds of indigenous people. There's a staggering diversity of plant and animal species. And basically, without it, we're facing bigger droughts, bigger famines, heat waves, and storms like the ones we're seeing across the country here and across the earth, in addition to the loss of one of the most magical places on earth. And that would be reason to both stop eating your hamburger and put pressure on these places. And like what Eric Adams might do because he believes in health, leverage some of the big government agencies that provide food to people to not provide it from these corporations and not provide unhealthy options to people. All of that money could be going to the people who are sustainably planting local vegetables in New York State. The school lunch adjustments could have really a global impact. So I don't know if he's doing this on purpose. I don't know if Eric Adams is like, hey, I'm an anti-globalist, anti-corporatist. I'd like to fix the climate change, but his health kick would actually do that, you know. By the way, I wouldn't doubt that squeezing down the public school budget and subsequently the school lunch budget is a plan to allow space for corporations like McDonald's to step in and say, oh, look, we're helping with the lunch. The system could definitely use some adjusting. I'm just saying. Very interesting. Interesting stuff. Well, just finally, that article tried to Politico tried to connect him and his health kick to health mandates and control. They are actually putting forth the narrative of the right wing about the Democratic Party and Democrats. And he's just saying, hey, I think we should all be healthier. And health insurance and healthcare would actually cost less if we all were healthier. And I think supporting that is a great idea. Isn't that what progressives should be behind? When I brought this up to a friend, she's like, isn't Politico a kind of left leaning? I'm like, yeah, they might be sort of socially left leaning, but this article reeks of corporate friendliness by just kind of smearing this guy's the potential for what this guy stands for. I'm Juliana Forlano. These have been the one headline. Usually it's the headlines, but I thought I really wanted to hit this one headline and hit it hard for you. Coming up next, we have got Jocelyn McCurdy Keats is joining us to do not a tribute to one of our favorite authors, one of our favorite public intellectuals. Bell Hooks passed away on the 15th of December, and we're going to talk about what she meant to us. So stay tuned.